Mars, the forge world at the heart of human technology, had sworn loyalty to the Emperor early on, but not all was harmonious in the cult Mechanicus. For decades, tension brewed beneath the red sands. The Mechanicum's tech priests revered the machine god and accepted the Emperor as its living embodiment, the Omnissiah. But some questioned this divine alignment. Whispers spread that the Emperor was a false prophet who had come to Mars merely to steal its secrets and subjugate the Martian priesthood. This dissent festered quietly, even as Mars dutifully churned out weapons for the Imperium's armies. When Warmaster Horus began his grand rebellion, the Horus Heresy, he saw the discontent on Mars as an opportunity. Horus was canny. He knew the value of the Mechanicum's support. Through envoys and hidden communications, he promised the Martian tech priests tantalizing rewards for their allegiance. Imagine the forbidden temptations placed before them: entire databases of lost knowledge, samples of advanced standard template constructs, STCs, the holy grails of technology supposedly recovered from distant worlds. Horus even pledged to unlock the sealed vaults of Mars itself, where the Mechanicum had locked away dangerous inventions deemed too corrupt or too advanced. To a faction of ambitious tech priests, these promises were irresistible. In their logic-addled minds, the Warmaster offered something the Emperor never would: complete intellectual freedom. At the same time, Horus's agents sowed fear. They spun lies, or perhaps truths twisted by perspective, that the Emperor planned to strip Mars of its power once the Crusade was won, to fold the Mechanicum fully under Imperial rule and suppress their autonomy. Combined with the theological dispute whether the Emperor truly was the Omnissiah or a fraud, these factors split the cult Mechanicus from within. The Fabricator General of Mars, Kelbor Hal, became the figurehead of the revolt. Once the Emperor's ally, Kelbor Hal secretly pledged loyalty to Horus. He and his like-minded adepts took to calling themselves the New Mechanicum, or True Mechanicum, claiming they followed the genuine path of knowledge unchained. When the heresy erupted, Mars itself exploded into civil war, an event known as the Schism of Mars. For the first time in millennia, Tech Priest fought Tech Priest, and the forges of the Red Planet ran not with sacred machine oil, but with blood. It was a war unlike any other. Forbidden weapons that had never seen the light of day were suddenly unleashed in the tunnels and manufactoria of Mars. Laboratory constructs sealed away for good reason were set free. At Kelbor Hal's command, encrypted data virus codes, the dreaded scrapcode, spread through loyalist networks, corrupting machine spirits and turning defenses against their masters. Imagine knights and battle automata going haywire as a scrapcode plague gnawed at their programming. In one notorious incident, a colossal war robot known as the Cabin Machine, an actual thinking AI weapon the traitors had built in secret, rampaged through the loyalist stronghold of Magma City. This towering engine, bristling with armaments and unshackled from any restraining protocols, was the embodiment of tech heresy. Loyal knights of Mars confronted it in desperate battle amid reactor fires and collapsing infrastructure. Mars had never seen such devastation wrought by its own creations. Across the galaxy, similar mini-schisms erupted wherever Mechanicum contingents were stationed alongside Horus's forces. A sect of traitor tech priests appeared at the infamous drop site massacre on Istvan V, supporting the traitor legions. These heretics jammed loyalist communications with scrapcode and fielded bizarre weaponry that shocked even veteran space marines. During the siege of Terra on Earth, traitor Mechanicum engineers sabotaged Imperial defenses and manipulated the very orbital fortifications meant to protect the throne world. The Dark Mechanicum's betrayal nearly gave Horus the edge he needed. But as history records, Horus was ultimately defeated. The Siege of Terra ended in the Emperor's Pyrrhic victory. In the aftermath, known as the Great Scouring, the Loyalists purged traitors across the galaxy. On Mars, the Loyalist tech priests, though scarred and diminished, rallied under a new fabricator general and drove the heretics out in a brutal purge. Kelbor Hall and his surviving followers did not wait to be executed. They grabbed whatever forbidden tech relics they could and fled Mars as it fell back under Imperial control. Hounded by vengeful loyalists, the traitor tech priests scattered. Some followed the retreating traitor legions into the Eye of Terror, that hellish permanent warp storm where the Chaos Space Marines would build their new strongholds. Others hid in remote star systems at the fringes of known space, beyond the Emperor's reach. Over the centuries, more disillusioned or power-hungry tech adepts from the Imperium quietly slipped away to join these outcasts. Thus, the Dark Mechanicus was not born in one single moment. It grew slowly but surely as a dark mirror to the Adeptus Mechanicus, where Mars rebuilt itself and became the heart of the new Adeptus Mechanicus. Ever faithful to the Imperium, the Dark Mechanicus formed a scattered, shadowy empire of their own. To the Imperium, these renegades became the stuff of nightmares and cautionary tales. They were among the very first to be branded heretici by Imperial authorities, tech priests whose works were so abominable that only death, or worse, awaited them if caught. The loyal cult Mechanicus revised its doctrines in the heresy's wake. Never again could such a schism be allowed. Tech priests reinforced strict dogmas, and Mars effectively damned Kelbor Hal's name and all who followed him. They tried to erase the Dark Mechanicus from history and memory, but erasing records did not erase reality. The heretek tech priests lived on in exile, nursing a hatred for Mars and the Imperium that only grew with time. They had lost the war, but in their view, they had found a truth more precious than victory. The realization that knowledge has no master, and that the machine god, in whatever form they now worshipped it, favors those bold enough to take risks. From the fires of Mars's civil war emerged the Dark Mechanicus. Defeated, yes, but unbroken in spirit. They had cast off the old oaths and restraints. Now, in the shadows and the warp, they would pursue sciences that the Emperor and his lackeys could never tolerate. In the cosmic quiet after the heresy, 1,000,000 forge fires secretly reignited in dark places. The long war was just beginning for the tech priests of chaos, and they had a universe of forbidden lore to rediscover. In the millennia after their exile, the Dark Mechanicus built a new existence, far from Imperial rule. Where the Adeptus Mechanicus centralized around Mars and loyal forge worlds bound by common doctrine, the Dark Mechanicus became a loose amalgam of dark fiefdoms. Scattered though they were, they shared one vital trait, a complete rejection of the old limits on knowledge. No experiment is off limits, no invention too blasphemous. This mantra unites them, if anything does. Freed from any oversight, the heretek tech priests continued to evolve. Many abandoned the cult Mechanicus's restrictive dogmas entirely. The loyal Mechanicus may chant litanies to calm machine spirits and fear the wrath of the Omnissiah for tinkering too much. Their renegade cousins scoff at such caution. In the eyes of the Dark Mechanicus, the machine god wants them to push boundaries. They often declare that the weaklings of Mars deny half of the machine god's nature, specifically the dark half, the chaotic, infinite possibilities of the warp. The Dark Mechanicus embraces both matter and ether. They believe true enlightenment comes from merging science and sorcery, machine and demon, intellect and insanity. As one heretek magos put it, the fools on Mars cut themselves off from the greatest source of knowledge, chaos. Thus, they will never transcend their primitive limitations. Not all Dark Mechanicus tech priests think exactly alike. Without a single dogma to guide them, their philosophies range widely. For example, some still revere the Omnissiah, but they now see it as an aspect of chaos, perhaps a pantheon of machine spirits tied to the dark gods. For those individuals, praising chaos through technological progress is worship of the true machine god in their eyes. Others, by contrast, renounce faith altogether, dismissing the machine god and Omnissiah as naive myths. They treat the universe as nothing more than a set of laws, physical and warp alike, to be studied and bent. These heretics pursue knowledge with cold, amoral logic. Ironically, not unlike how a machine itself might. Many, of course, actively worship chaos in one form or another. There are magi devoted to Nurgle, for instance, who breed revolting techno-organic plagues that fuse rust, rot, and demonic disease. Some are sworn to Slaanesh. Their workshops echo with screams as they push the boundaries of pain, pleasure, and cybernetic sensation. Others favor Tziench, becoming tech wizards who trade sanity for arcane circuitry and paradox engine devices that defy reason. A few are cornate forge lords who create engines of destruction so brutally effective that the blood god himself would smile upon their work. Diverse as these motivations are, they all align on a key point. Nothing is truly forbidden. Xenos technology, proscribed sciences, true artificial intelligence, soul-binding experiments. The Dark Mechanicus will pursue them all if it serves their ends. Innovation, a concept virtually heretical to their loyalist peers, is embraced wholeheartedly. In fact, to call them merely corrupted tech priests is to undersell their nature. They are radicals and pioneers in their own right, albeit guided by twisted morals and often horrific intentions. As the Dark Mechanicus spread out, they established strongholds on numerous worlds, especially in regions steeped in warp energy where the Imperium's grip was weak. These fallen forge worlds are often called Hell Forges, once perhaps ordinary forge worlds, now transformed into industrial hellscapes under the dominion of dark magi. Within the Eye of Terror, the Chaos Realm where the warp bleeds into reality and other warp-saturated zones, many of these Hell Forges thrive, immune to easy Imperial retaliation. Other Hell Forges exist in hidden corners of the galaxy, shrouded by distance or by anomalous phenomena like the halo stars or the maelstrom, where Imperial patrols seldom tread. What is life like on a Hell Forge? Picture a world where the horizon is nothing but serrated silhouettes of factorum spires and furnace stacks, belching smoke so toxic it blots out the sun. The ground trembles constantly from ceaseless heavy machinery. The air is an acrid haze of chemicals, ozone, and ash. On such a world, every cogitator computer hums with corrupted code, and every assembly line might just as easily produce demonic war engines as mundane tools. Mortals, the human population, are scarce in rights and value, existing primarily as slaves to feed the forges. Entire clans of scavengers and vat-grown mutants toil in mines and assembly lines until they collapse, their lives spent like any other raw resource to be consumed. Many of these unfortunates have been deliberately altered, injected with combat drugs or fitted with crude bionic limbs to make them more efficient laborers. Their overseers are armed cybernetic brutes and lobotomized servitors that enforce the Mago's will without mercy. On a Hell Forge, suffering itself is currency. The dark magi who rule have discovered that anguish and bloodletting can be harnessed, sometimes literally, as fuel for warp-powered devices. There are furnaces into which screaming captives are fed to empower demon-bound machines. The howls of the dying are just another sound in the industrial symphony. In massive foundries, iron and ichor mix. The walls are etched with unholy runes to attract the favor of dark powers. It is not uncommon to witness things that would freeze a sane man's soul. Vats where organic components are melted down to slurry for biomechanical amalgams, or labyrinthine data vaults where caged warp entities whisper binary secrets into the cogitator banks. The entire world operates like a charnel house factory, churning out creations that would make a loyal Martian tech priest weep in revulsion. Each Hellforge is effectively the dominion of one, or a cabal, of Dark Magos overlords. These overlords have often ruled for centuries or longer, sustained by cybernetics, occult rejuvenation, or a bit of both. In many cases, they are barely recognizable as human. Some have bodies almost entirely mechanical, a scuttling mass of pistons, tank treads, and weapon limbs, perhaps with a shrunken organic brain or withered torso at the core. Others have embraced chaos mutations, becoming bloated and monstrous, crusted with tentacles, horned visages, and other demonic attributes. One infamous figure, for instance, dubbed the Living Baneblade, literally grafted his upper body into the hull of a Baneblade super-heavy tank, permanently merging man and machine into a single murderous engine. Another, known as the Furnace Lord, replaced so much of his flesh with molten metal and demon-forged furnace hearts that he must bathe in the heat of an active volcano to sustain himself. Such grotesque transformations are badges of honor in the Dark Mechanicus, physical proof of their defiance of natural limits. Unlike the Adeptus Mechanicus, which is unified, at least nominally, under the Fabricator General of Mars, and bound by a strict creed, the Dark Mechanicus has no single leader or capital world. Kelbor Hall, their would-be founder, vanished into obscurity, perhaps killed by rivals long ago, or perhaps entombed in some demon engine of his own making, but certainly no longer commanding anyone. In his absence, the Dark Mechanicus splintered into countless factions. Every Hellforge or wandering heretek clan is essentially sovereign. Alliances form when convenient, say 3 Forge worlds pooling resources to build a particularly colossal demon engine, but such pacts are often temporary and rife with betrayal. Just as often, rival Hellforges sabotage or outright attack one another to steal valuable data or components. Some in the Imperium mistakenly think of the Dark Mechanicus as a single unified cult, which would be an almost unimaginable threat. The truth is more insidious. They are chaotic in more than one sense of the word. One warband of Dark Mechanicus may differ greatly from the next. For example, the heretics of Samek, a Hellforge hidden in the Jericho Reach, behave like an organized priesthood of war, bargaining weapons to Chaos Space Marine legions in return for genetic samples and arcane artifacts. Meanwhile, on Zana 2, a demon world forge deep in the Eye of Terror, the ruling Magos is content to remain aloof, trading horrific war machines to any Chaos warlord who meets his price in slaves, but otherwise pursuing his private obsession with creating an AI-guided Titan. With no external checks, each Forge Master's personality and madness shapes his realm completely. This fragmented structure is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it means no single blow can decapitate the Dark Mechanicus. There is no Mars, whose fall would collapse the whole enterprise. On the other hand, it has, so far, prevented them from presenting a united front capable of sweeping aside the Adeptus Mechanicus entirely. The squabbling of Chaos warlords extends to their tech priests as well. It is often said that if the Dark Mechanicus could stop feuding and pool their knowledge, they might have long ago ushered in a new dark age of technology to drown the Imperium in nightmares. But like many who fall to chaos, ambition and paranoia keep them divided, and so they remain in the shadows. an unseen threat that flares up in isolated wars rather than a coordinated galaxy-wide force. Yet, even divided, they are far from toothless, as the Imperium has learned to its cost whenever these heretics strike. Perhaps the most frightening aspect of the Dark Mechanicus is their workshop ingenuity. By casting aside ethical and religious constraints, they have achieved technological feats the Adeptus Mechanicus could only dream of or have nightmares about. Over 10,000 years, these heretics have crafted devices and weapons that defy reason and sanctity alike. Foremost among their creations are the dreaded daemon engines, monstrous meldings of demonic sentience and machinery. Where the Imperium might have a tank with a machine spirit, a fancy term for a vehicle's limited built-in intelligence, the Dark Mechanicus might build a tank that literally has a caged daemon for a soul. The result? A war engine that can think and hunger and hate, independent of any crew. The infamous Defiler is a prime example. Designed in the aftermath of the heresy as a gift to the Traitor Marines, a Defiler is a scuttling, six-legged artillery beast that howls like a living creature. Its core consciousness is indeed a bound daemon of Khorne, the blood god, which lusts for destruction. Left to its own devices, a Defiler will charge at prey with claws clanging and battle cannon booming, reveling in slaughter. Yet it is also cunning enough to use cover or coordinate with allies in a predatory way. Guardsmen who have faced one describe it less like fighting a vehicle and more like surviving an encounter with a gigantic, rabid metal scorpion. And there are many such daemon engines. The brass scorpion, an even larger scorpion-like walker, bristling with cannons, scuttles with terrifying speed, its metal carapace embossed with chaos symbols that glow from the fire of the bound demon within. The Soul Grinder is a horror of metal and demonic flesh fused together. It originates from the Forge of Souls in the warp itself, where daemons bargain for new physical forms and are fused into these hellish constructs. Essentially a walking siege engine with a demon's torso emerging from a chassis of iron legs, a Soul Grinder lumbers across battlefields, vomiting warp fire from its maw and crushing tanks under enormous claws. Those Soul Grinders are born in the Imperium, the warp. The Dark Mechanicus has no qualms about summoning and binding them for use in real space. To see one in action is to witness a demon playing at being a tank. A truly harrowing sight. The Dark Mechanicus does not stop at vehicles and walkers. They have toyed with techno-viruses that transform living beings into weaponized amalgams of flesh and steel. The horrific Obliterator virus is one such blasphemy attributed to them. This insidious contagion, likely engineered from a fusion of warp sorcery and insane bioengineering, infects Chaos Space Marines and gradually mutates them into walking arsenals. An infected warrior's flesh and ceramite armor meld and reshape, guns and blades sprouting from their limbs in a grotesque parody of evolution. Bones reconstitute into weapon barrels, muscles fuse with power cables and firing mechanisms. In battle, an Obliterator can literally morph new weapons out of its living metal flesh. One moment, its arm might sport a twisted flamethrower. The next, it reshapes into a massive rotary cannon or a set of gleaming claws. The creature inside is barely recognizable as a space marine anymore, consumed by an ever-growing hunger for more armaments. The Obliterator virus is so feared that the Imperium's Ordo Sepulturum, biohazard specialists, has standing orders to destroy carriers at all costs. Thankfully, it only affects those who have already embraced dark technological corruption. It's not going to randomly infect the average citizen. The Dark Mechanicus view this virus as a triumph of biomechanical evolution, the perfect union of man, machine, and war, however grotesque the result. Another signature of their arsenal is the use of esoteric weapons that warp the conventional rules of warfare. Not content with bullets and lass beams, they helped develop devices that utilize psychic resonance or sonic energy as weapons. The Emperor's children. Traitor Legion, for instance, employ sonic blasters and doom sirens weapons that emit warp-infused harmonics to literally liquefy a victim's organs or overload their nervous system with agonizing pleasure/pain. It's widely believed that without heretek scientists to refine the designs, those sonic weapons would never have reached their horrifying effectiveness. Likewise, the Dark Mechanicus delights in radiation-based weaponry beyond the pale of what loyal tech priests would use. Rad engines that bathe entire battle zones in mutagenic radiation, gravitic weapons that collapse bunkers by intensifying gravity. All these and more have emerged from Dark Mechanicus workshops. Loyal Mechanicus Arsenal certainly has powerful tools like plasma guns and melter rays, but the heretics push even further into the strange and forbidden. They've tinkered with demonically augmented lasers, lightning guns crackling with warp energy, and ammunition that carries scrapcode payloads. Picture a shell fired into an enemy tank that doesn't explode in the traditional sense, but instead releases a parasitic code that seizes control of the vehicle's machine spirit and turns its guns on its own side. In the hands of the Dark Mechanicus, even information itself becomes a weapon. Crucially, the Dark Mechanicus has no compunctions about resurrecting artificial intelligence and other ancient technologies that the rest of humanity has abjured. The Mechanicum of old remembered well the legendary Men of Iron, the sentient humanoid machines that nearly exterminated humanity in a forgotten age. And so the cult Mechanicus has long forbidden abominable intelligences. The Dark Mechanicus spits on this ban. They have attempted, and occasionally succeeded, to create true AI servants. The Kaban machine on Mars was just the first dramatic example. Since then, whispers abound that entire armies of self-aware robotic soldiers have been assembled in secret. Some are supposedly controlled by bound daemons to keep them in check. Others, perhaps guided by cloned human brains, or something equally disturbing. The risk of such creations turning on their masters is high, and indeed, more than one heretic outpost has been obliterated in accidents involving rogue machines. Yet, the heretics are willing to gamble, convinced that if they could revive the glories of the dark age of technology, when autonomous machines built wonders and fought humanity's wars, they would hold unbeatable power. The Imperium deeply fears this possibility. There are apocryphal inquisitorial records hinting that on at least one occasion, a Dark Mechanicus team uncovered a hidden cache of ancient war robots and managed to reawaken them. That incident allegedly ended with a full exterminatus, the outright destruction of an entire planet, by the panicked Imperial authorities. Even one partial success in this realm is treated as a potential doomsday scenario. Their proficiency in digital and warp-based warfare is equally nightmarish. We've mentioned scrapcode, the malignant machine plague they use to infiltrate and subvert technology. The Dark Mechanicus has refined such techno-viruses into something akin to digital demons. They craft data demons, code so intertwined with warp sentience, that unleashing it on an enemy system is more like an exorcism gone wrong than a hack. When these viruses slither into a cogitator network, the effect is of demonic possession at the electronic level. During the Horus Heresy's Battle of Calth, for instance, the Word-Bearers, aided by heretic tech sorcerers, slipped scrapcode into Ultramarines' defenses, causing planetary shields to drop and automated turrets to frenzy at the worst possible moment. In contemporary times, similar tactics are deployed. Before a major chaos offensive, a targeted world's communication grids or void shields might mysteriously fail. By the time the Imperials realize a scrapcode demon has infested their systems, the enemy is already at the gates. Loyal tech priests do have countermeasures, secure rights, machine spirit purges, etc. But it's a constant arms race of code upon code. Fighting the Dark Mechanicus in cyberspace can be as harrowing as facing them in person. When it comes to waging war openly, the Dark Mechanicus can field armies that mirror and distort those of the Adeptus Mechanicus. A Dark Magos going to battle will bring cohorts of warrior forgeborn and hellish contraptions as his arsenal. At the top are the heretek tech priests themselves, often lurking at the rear or in the armored belly of a war machine, directing the carnage from relative safety. They might stride forth personally in a mech-like exoskeleton of their own design, spider-legged and bristling with integrated weapons. You'll seldom find a Dark Magos charging heroically with a sword. More likely, he's surrounded by crackling energy fields, moving pieces on the battlefield like a chess master. With mechadendrite tentacles plugged into data ports, he can coordinate his forces with inhuman precision. And if cornered, he has a suite of hidden weapons, built-in flamer units, poisoned needle tendrils, perhaps even a teleport escape device. Why fight fair when you can fight smart? The frontline troops under his command are typically a teeming horde of expendables. Mutant slaves and corrupted servitors, cybernetic automatons made from human parts, are driven forward as cannon fodder. These wretches might be rigged with explosives or outfitted with crude implanted weapons. Fueled by fear or combat drugs, they'll charge enemy lines with suicidal abandon. There's nothing subtle here. The intention is to overwhelm defenders with sheer numbers and sow terror. Intermingled with them are packs of dark Skitarii, the warped counterpart to the disciplined Skitarii legions of Mars. These soldiers are often cultists or traitor soldiers who have been mechanically augmented and indoctrinated. They sport limbs replaced by clanging bionics, enhanced sensory arrays grafted onto their skulls, and carry an assortment of deadly armaments. Their armor is a patchwork of scavenged plates and custom augmentations, frequently painted in soot black or blood red, marked with the spiked cogwheel of the Dark Mechanicus. While not as rigidly drilled as Imperial Skitarii, they make up for it with ferocity and sheer unpredictability. Some can enter frenzies triggered by neural implants, becoming berserk killing machines immune to pain. Marching alongside the living troops are the battle automata and robots. The Dark Mechanicus inherited many patterns of ancient combat automata from the old Mechanicum towering robot soldiers like the Castellax, Vorax, or Crusader-class robots, and they've had 10 millennia to modify or outright possess them. A robot under heretek control might have a literal minor demon bound into its cortex, giving it a malevolent sentience far beyond its original programming. You might see a once loyal Castellan robot now striding under a banner of chaos, its normally featureless faceplate reworked into a leering metal skull, and its behavior unpredictable and vicious. These automata can soak up an incredible amount of fire, especially if the heretics have tweaked their shielding or armor with forbidden alloys. Some Dark Mechanicus robots wield bizarre weapons, for instance, a giant chain blade crackling with infernal energy, or a lightning gun that arcs warp lightning between multiple foes. Unlike the loyalist Mechanicus, which treats each battle robot as a revered relic to be retrieved and repaired, the Dark Mechanicus treats theirs as consumable assets. If a demon robot goes berserk and wanders off script, so be it. Sometimes they'll even detonate an overloaded reactor in a robot just to wipe out nearby enemies in its death throes. Above the battlefield and in support roles, a wide array of war machines bolster the heretek legions. The Dark Mechanicus uses twisted versions of tanks, walkers, and aircraft, many based on Imperial designs but modified, others unique to their dark forges. Anti-gravity skimmers, for instance, are a rarity in the Imperium. The secret of grav-tech is mostly lost, except in small examples. But some dark magi have rediscovered or reinvented it. Thus, you may encounter floating assault craft or hover tanks rushing ahead of the main force, spitting multi-meltas and demon fire from gun ports. More common are scavenged Imperial tanks like Leman Russ battle tanks or Chimera transports that have been chaosified, covered in spikes, etched with runes, their machine spirits corrupted to allow far more dangerous overcharging of engines and guns. There are also unique engines like the Venom Crawler, a spider-like demon engine that skitters on clawed legs and fires searing ectoplasmic beams while trying to rip apart prey with its mandibles, a sort of techno-demonic predator unleashed by the Dark Mechanicus in more recent times. The skies are not safe either. The Dark Mechanicus and their allies field ominous aircraft such as Hellblades and Hell Talons, swift strike fighters and bombers originally devised by Chaos Cult engineers. These aircraft scream through the skies with shark-like profiles, often automated or guided by crazed servitor brains wired into the cockpit. They rain down baleful munitions, bombs that explode with warp flame or missiles carrying virus payloads. Unlike the Imperium's more reserved approach to aerial warfare, the heretics have no problem using flyers piloted by corrupted machine spirits that will unhesitatingly perform suicide dives if it means taking out a target. And then there are the God Engines, the Traitor Titan Legions, and the Renegade Knight Houses. During the Horus Heresy, several Titan Legions, those colossal walking cathedrals of destruction, cast their lot with Horus and the Dark Mechanicum. To this day, their surviving machines, with names like Legio Mortis, the Death Heads, still operate, maintained only by the tireless efforts of Dark Mechanicus priesthoods. These Chaos Titans are terrifying to behold, where once they were adorned with honorable scrollwork and Imperial aquilus, now they bristle with spikes, and their metal plating is often warped, as if the Titan itself is alive and in pain or anger. Many Chaos Titans have literal demonic faces fused into their hulls, bellowing unholy war cries as they lumber into battle. The tech priests who service them do so in ritualistic trances, communing not with a holy machine spirit, but with the raging warp entity that now inhabits the Titan's heart. On the battlefield, these engines tower over all, their plasma reactors sometimes modified to run hotter than any safety limit. Dark Magi aren't big on safety first. Their weapons, massive cannons, lasers, and missile racks have been improved with demonic enhancements. For example, a Titan's Mega Bolter rounds might be inscribed with runes that cause each impact to unleash gouting hellfire, or its laser blasters might have fragmentary warp drives attached that momentarily flicker the beam out of real space, bypassing void shields. Without the Dark Mechanicus, these ancient behemoths would eventually fall into disrepair, even with their demon-possessed vitality. Instead, they stride on, scourges of entire armies. Similarly, the Chaos Knights, the smaller one-man cousins of Titans, are kept alive by heretical ministrations. Whole knightly houses turned traitor in the Heresy and later years, and their knight suits have since been refitted by Hellforges. These war machines, roughly 30 feet tall, often looking like giant armored warriors, might be seen bearing the colors of their dark household along with gruesome new adornments, trophy racks of skulls, additional weapon mounts grafted on by tech priests who don't care if the machine's spirit objects, even chain-bound demons that literally run through the night circuits to empower it, at the cost of gradually consuming the pilot's sanity, no doubt. The Dark Mechanicus ensure these knights have an endless supply of ammo, spare parts, and unholy upgrades. In battle, Chaos Knights are frequently deployed as vanguards, a knight rampaging ahead of the infantry, shield belts crackling with infernal energy, Gatling cannons spinning and reaping lives by the dozen. All the while, a hooded Dark Magos or his minions follow in its wake, perhaps remotely tuning its performance or preparing rites in case the knight is crippled. They might attempt to summon a warp entity to possess the chassis rather than let it be destroyed, turning a broken knight into a crazed, unbound demon for one last act of carnage. It's worth noting that the Dark Mechanicus rarely fights alone as a pure, isolated army. They are often the behind-the-scenes force supporting the broader Chaos war machine. They supply the Chaos Space Marines and Chaos-aligned regiments of the Lost and the Damned, Traitor humans, with weaponry, vehicles, and technical expertise. In return, they gain protection, resources, and test subjects. For example, an Iron Warriors warband. Iron Warriors are a Chaos Space Marine legion obsessed with siege warfare and who have a natural kinship with technology, might form a symbiotic alliance with a Dark Mechanicus contingent. The Iron Warriors will bring heavy guns and tactical prowess, and the Dark Mechanicus will crack open the fortress doors with arcane breaching devices and provide profane artillery shells to topple walls. Similarly, the Word-bearers, Chaos Marines who are fanatical cultists, often collaborate with heretics to combine ritual and machine. Summoning demons into machines requires both sorceress and technological know-how. Even legions that aren't close to the Mechanicus in temperament, like the World Eaters, who mostly just want to charge and kill, gladly accept the demon engines and chain axes that the Dark Mechanicus forge for them. In many major conflicts of the 41st millennium, the unseen hand of the Dark Mechanicus has been present. They are the armorers and enablers of the Traitor Legion's long war. Without them, the armies of Chaos would eventually grind to a halt. Bolt guns would run out of ammunition, tanks would be immobilized for lack of parts, warships would drift powerless. Recognizing this, Imperial commanders have occasionally tried to target the Dark Mechanicus elements supporting a Chaos uprising. The logic is simple. If you cut off the source of the enemy's weapons, you can cripple the offensive. In practice, however, finding and neutralizing the heretics is extremely difficult. They excel at hiding behind layers of pawns. On a besieged world, the Dark Mechanicus might not reveal itself except through the effects of its handiwork, a manufactorum that inexplicably starts pumping out ammunition for the rebels, or a city's power grid that fails just as the invaders attack. By the time the Imperial suspect tech heresy involvement, the heretics have either moved on or dug in so deep that extracting them is a whole campaign in itself. When facing the Dark Mechanicus head-on, one is not just fighting mortals, nor just machines, nor even just demons, but an unholy fusion of all three. Victory often requires extreme measures. The Adeptus Mechanicus has, in its more pragmatic moments, dusted off some forbidden countertech of its own to battle their shadowy counterparts. For example, unleashing ancient scrapcode counter-viruses or deploying tamed machine spirits that have been blessed in the Basilicum Mechanicus, essentially AI constructs the Mechanicus barely considers acceptable. The Inquisition's Ordo Malleus, demon hunters, and Ordo Hereticus, witch hunters, keep extensive dossiers on known Dark Mechanicus figures, and not a few have dispatched elite assassins to quietly eliminate a particularly brilliant Dark Magos before his invention can tip the balance of a war. Sometimes these missions succeed. Other times, the assassins vanish only to resurface as grotesque cyborg servitors in the halls of a hellforge, their failure made into the next experiment. It is a silent, never-ending war behind the scenes of the larger battlefields, one side striving to unleash unspeakable horrors, and the other racing to stop them, or at least mitigate the damage. In the current era, the late 41st millennium and into the fledgling years of the 42nd, the Dark Mechanicus remains an ever-present, if often unseen, menace. The opening of the Great Rift, a galaxy-wide warp catastrophe that tore the Imperium in half, has only emboldened them. Whole swaths of the Imperium were isolated and thrown into chaos by that event, giving the heretics golden opportunities to strike boldly. They have been sighted more frequently, conducting raids on Imperial research facilities and vaults of forbidden technology. In one notable instance during the 13th Black Crusade, the galaxy-shaking chaos invasion that saw Cadia fall and the Great Rift born. Teams of Dark Mechanicus operatives and their war constructs invaded multiple devastated Forge worlds near the Eye of Terror. Their mission was singular: seize ancient archaeotech and STC fragments amid the chaos. They hit target after target, each time withdrawing with craft full of looted data and artifacts. The pattern wasn't random pillage. It suggested a carefully calculated shopping list, as if gathering components of a grand design. Imperial savants analyzing these raids have formed dire theories. One hypothesis: the Dark Mechanicus are close to completing some kind of superweapon the likes of which hasn't been seen since the Dark Age of technology. The scattered items they stole, a gravimetric inversion core here, a psychic resonance engine there, an entire STC data core somewhere else, could, when combined, form a doomsday device capable of unimaginable destruction. Perhaps a reality collider that could tear open permanent warp rifts on dozens of worlds at once, or a virus of machine and demon that could corrupt every network it touches. A particularly chilling possibility is that they aim to resurrect the Men of Iron en masse, essentially birthing a new army of AI war robots, but under their control, or under Chaos's control, which is hardly better. Another theory posits they are constructing a star-scale weapon, something that could make a sun go supernova or extinguish a sector's worth of stars. The truth remains obscured. The Dark Mechanicus loves its secrets after all. But what's clear is that their activities have escalated. The Adeptus Mechanicus and Inquisition frantically try to predict and thwart these schemes, knowing full well that if the heretics succeed at any one of these nightmare projects, the cost in lives could be astronomical. Even as the Imperium's forces fight open battles against Xenos and Chaos legions, the Dark Mechanicus works insidiously behind the scenes. On some battlefronts, you'd never know they were involved. Perhaps a crusade ends in failure because all the tanks mysteriously broke down at a critical moment, or a planetary governor's last defense lasers malfunctioned when the enemy struck. Was it poor maintenance, random chance, or a glint of metal in the shadows, a cloaked heretek agent inserting a scrapcode curse that went unnoticed until it was too late? Such is the subtlety of their interference. Conversely, when you do see the telltale signs of a Hellforger's handiwork out in the open, it's a sign that a conflict is truly dire. If the horizon of battle gleams with the onyx silhouettes of defilers and brass scorpions marching alongside traitor regiments, or if Auspex scans pick up the distinct energy readings of a warp-powered reactor in the enemy camp, you know the Dark Mechanicus has taken a personal interest. In those moments, commanders often call for aid from the highest levels. Grey Knights, perhaps, or Martian emissaries with specialty kill squads. Because a fight against the Dark Mechanicus on the field is like fighting an engineer of your own destruction. They will target your tanks, your supply lines, even the power packs of your troops' lasguns, turning your own reliance on technology into a weakness. The Adeptus Mechanicus, more than anyone, is painfully aware of this threat. They have entire subdivisions, some whisper of an Ordo Reductor or an Ordo Machinum within the Inquisition, devoted to monitoring and countering Dark Mechanicus operations. The relationship between the loyal and traitor tech priests is ironically symbiotic in this war. They understand each other's methods in a way outsiders do not. The Loyalists often have to think like the heretics to anticipate them, a practice that undoubtedly walks the knife's edge of Dark Heresy itself. It's a grim irony. To protect the Imperium from the sins of forbidden knowledge, the Adeptus Mechanicus must occasionally dip its fingers, if only the mechanical ones, into forbidden knowledge as well. The Dark Mechanicus has lasted 10,000 years by staying one step ahead of extinction, always adapting, always experimenting, and always knowing when to slip away and bide their time. They might not dominate headlines in the Imperium's history scrolls as much as a Black Crusade or a Tyranid hive fleet, but they are always there, lurking, the crawling infestation of heresy that undermines from within. Every time the Adeptus Mechanicus makes a technological breakthrough or recovers a lost STC, there's a very real fear that the Dark Mechanicus is watching, perhaps even infiltrating the team, eager to steal the discovery or corrupt it. Every time the Imperium faces a new alien technology, say Necron or Eldar Marvels, you can bet some heretek is coveting it, plotting to acquire and pervert it for chaos. And yet, despite all this, the Dark Mechanicus members often portray themselves, at least among their own circles, not as villains, but as the ones truly upholding the pursuit of knowledge. In their narrative, it is the Adeptus Mechanicus that has lost its way, bound by superstition and fear of the unknown. The heretics claim they are the real explorers on the frontiers of science. If tens of thousands of human lives must be sacrificed to power an experimental warp engine, so be it. In their calculus, the ends justify the means. This cold, merciless rationalization is what makes them so profoundly dangerous. Unlike a blood-crazed berserker, who at least has the excuse of madness, a dark magos can calmly justify the most heinous atrocity as a step forward for understanding. It is the mindset of a scientist utterly unmoored from ethics or empathy, and in a universe as lethal as Warhammer 40K, that might be the most horrifying mindset of all. 10 millennia of hatred and innovation have made the Dark Mechanicus experts in survival and in wreaking havoc whenever they emerge from the shadows. They might not command the vast legions that some other enemies of the Imperium do, but their influence is felt disproportionately through the weapons they supply and the terrible knowledge they spread. Their existence is a cautionary tale, a warning of what happens when the quest for knowledge loses all moral restraint. The Dark Mechanicus is out there still, hidden in rust-black factories under poison skies, lurking within seemingly loyal Adeptus Mechanicus ranks, waiting for the right moment to strike. Each heretic believes they are on the brink of the next great breakthrough, the one discovery that will topple the false emperor's reign and prove that knowledge should never be shackled. One might almost admire their audacity and dedication to discovery, if it didn't involve torturing reality and countless innocents in the process. Ultimately, the Dark Mechanicus stands as a terrifying reminder that technology in the wrong hands can be more horrific than any demon. They are the nightmare shadow of the Adeptus Mechanicus, proof that the pursuit of understanding, divorced from empathy and sanity, leads straight into damnation. The galaxy will know no peace while these deranged inventors ply their trade in darkness. As surely as the Imperium relies on its machines to survive, the Dark Mechanicus will be scheming to corrupt those machines, subvert that reliance, and turn mankind's greatest strength into its ultimate weakness. So the next time you witness a machine do something inexplicable, a factory assembly line that starts up when it should be idle, or a defense turret that swivels on its own, listen closely to the static in its vox hum. You might just hear distant cackling binary, the echo of a Dark Mechanicus savant delighting in another small victory. In the shadows of their hell forges, they are always watching, always tinkering. If the day ever comes when their grand design is fully realized, the Imperium of man will tremble before the monstrous fruits of forbidden science. In the grim darkness of the far future, when you imagine the very worst that technology can do, remember the Dark Mechanicus is busy making it a reality.